I do think for the people who troll me when I do reply, it is like a highlight for them. Highlight of their week, highlight of their month. Like, oh, you got me to reply. And for them, it's this huge moment. And for me, I have forgotten as soon as I press send. Hello and welcome to Queen Things, the show where we talk about the things that matter to us queens, because if it matters to us, it matters. I'm KJ Miller. I'm a founder, a lecturer, a content creator, and your host. And what are we talking about today? It's been a busy week. First of all, we have to talk about Devil Wears Prada. I finally went and saw it, and I do have thoughts. I wish I could say they were all positive. They are not, but I want to talk about it. I also want to talk about Caitlin Clark. We did an episode on Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. To this day, still one of our more controversial episodes. I can't for the life of me figure out why. And she's back in the news for her decision to do a walkout or something with Morgan Wallen for some reason. And, I have thoughts on that. Once again, we're talking about Wes Wilson, and somebody called Jennifer Fessler. Not super familiar with her, but she had some words to say regarding Sierra Miller. So now I have some words to say about her. Who else? Billie Eilish. Oh, I have a take right now. It is not going viral, I wouldn't say. We're in the thousands of views, not the millions of views. But it's got a lot of people talking. And so, you know me, when something's popping off on socials, I like to bring it right on over here. So we're going to talk about that. And we may end by talking about Meghan Trainor. I don't think I've ever spoken about her on this show, to my knowledge. We may end there, and some other bips and bops along the way. So let's get into it. Quick announcement before we get into everything. I did say this on my last bonus episode that for the month of May, the bonus would be an Ask Me Anything, where I would be responding to questions you guys asked me. But then I haven't said that until now. So far, I don't have questions. So if you could drop any questions that you have for me in the comments, you can DM me. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you can message me there. You can find your way to me. You can ask me on TikTok, however it is you want to do it. And I will spend that episode weaving a bit of a tale via the questions you've asked. It'll be more of a personal episode. The last episode was pretty personal too. In case you missed it, I did a rundown of my book proposal, which is currently on submission, as they say in the industry. I think that's what we say. I'm on submission with my book. So I did kind of a deep dive into the proposal and the proposal process. For this one, it can be much broader. We can talk about beauty. I have founded a beauty brand. We can talk about content creation. I am a creator. We can talk about academia. I am a lecturer. We can talk about motherhood. I have a child, exactly one child. I will be having no more. We can talk about the Midwest. We can talk about Ohio. We can talk about the Ivy League. I went to Harvard a couple times. Whatever it is y'all want to talk about, we will do in this month's bonus. So send me your questions and obviously subscribe so you can hear all the juicy things that I just might say. And with that, let's get into it. So let's talk about Devil Wears Prada. Let's start with the good, shall we? The best thing that I truly believe I can say about this film is that the actresses all looked fantastic. Meryl looked amazing. Anne Hathaway looked amazing. Emily Blunt looked amazing, okay? This movie came out 20 years ago, and none of them look like they have aged 20 years at all. And neither do any of them, to me at least, look like they have had excessive work done. I'm not suggesting they haven't had any work done. I don't know. If they did have work done, they have very good doctors, and the work is very subtle because I think all of them look like themselves, a bit older, but very refreshed. That's part of why I'm even saying, like, I can believe that they have had work done, because for 20 years to pass and all three of y'all to still look so fantastic. I mean, kudos to you. Okay. So that's the number one good thing I can say about this film. Another good thing I can say is I did find the acting to be good. I think that the three of them did well with what they were given. The problem is in what they were given, okay? And, my husband and I were talking about this right after we saw the movie. Whenever I go see a sequel, and generally speaking, we know sequels are typically not great. We know that. None of us come in thinking this is going to be so amazing because it's a sequel, right? So your expectations are already lowered. Here's the thing. Whenever I think about sequels, I think about what is, in my opinion, the best sequel of all time. And obviously, I'm talking about Sister Act 2. Obviously, Sister Act 2 was better than the first Sister Act. I think we literally all agree, okay? And so I don't understand how you can have a film that quite literally gives you the blueprint for how to think about sequels. That film also came out, 30 something years ago? You can have such a great blueprint and still not be getting it right. Because what did we learn from Sister Act 2? Okay. To me, what they did so right, and this is what I think all sequels should be studying. Hello. What they did so right was they asked themselves, what is the most important piece of Sister Act? Like, what is the thing we have to have that everybody loved? Obviously, the answer was it was twofold. Whoopi Goldberg and music. Those are the two things that obviously made everybody love the first one. So they said, those are the two things we have to have. But then they said, we can rewrite everything else. We can quite literally undo the rest. So it doesn't have to be centered around Vegas. The first one was centered around Vegas, a crime boss and his cronies, like all of the shenanigans there within. They didn't have any of that. They open up in Vegas, but there's no real Vegas storyline to it. There's certainly no crime boss storyline to it. They rethought everything and just said, what's the best story we can tell that brings back Whoopi and involves music? Okay. And that is what we should have done with Devil Wears Prada too. If you ask yourself, what do we have to have? What do we have to have? What made this movie so great the first time around? And obviously, the answer is Meryl Streep. She is that movie. I would say more so than Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt and Stanley Tucci. I'm happy they brought the gang all back together. But frankly, do I think they could have written a fantastic Devil Wears Prada 2 that only brought back Meryl Streep? Yes, because she was the linchpin to the entire film. And so if you had started with that, and then said, so how do we make a fantastic film knowing that what we need more than anything else is this woman playing this character, and maybe we blow up all the rest. Maybe she's no longer at Runway. She's no longer running this magazine. Maybe now she's being a devil. She's being a terror to people who aren't in the fashion world. Or if they are in the fashion world, maybe now she works at Prada. I don't know. I'm not a film writer. What I'm telling you is we have the blueprint. Sister Act 2 gave us the blueprint. You got to figure out what's the thing we have to have and then be willing to bend and shape all the rest. And instead, what I think we got is a film that felt like it was written via a boardroom and via a checklist, right? So they said, what are the things that this sequel has to have? And it felt that way because the thing is, even if you said to yourself, okay, the must-have things are Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, fine. Like we have to bring back our main characters. Okay. Even if you started there, and even if you took the basic plot, and here's where there are going to be some spoilers. We'll put in the show notes if you don't want any spoilers, where you can skip ahead to, because now we're going to get into spoilers. Even the plot that they came up with in and of itself isn't bad. To me, it's very basic, but in and of itself could have worked, right? Because at least it made sense why everyone was coming together. The plot essentially being Runway is struggling, is in a media crisis, so they need to like clean up their image. And Andy, on the other hand, has just lost her journalism job. Okay, great. So she is looking for something to do, and they are looking for someone to save them. Bada bing, bada boom, they're back together. So fine. As a plot, even though it's very basic, and even though I think I would have preferred for them to think a little bit more outside the box, it gets us there. And it could have been serviceable. But then you don't utilize the people you have in front of you, these amazing actors, these Oscar-winning actors. You don't utilize them to their fullest ability because you're so focused on checking the boxes. Oh, we need to check the box of she can't be as mean as she used to be because HR, because politically correct, because we're all woke now. So that's a box they decided they had to check. Then they had to check the box of, but we still want some of the iconic moments. So we got to reference the fact that she used to throw her coat at Andy and now she can't do that. We have to reference, moments from the first film, her going up the stairs, her going into the townhouse and being scared to like visit Miranda. We got to do that whole scene again. Like, it just felt like, oh, what are some of the iconic things? And we need to do them again. And therefore, we cannot utilize all of the actors to the best of their ability. And that just made it feel like it kind of sludged on a bit, like, okay, this is the scene where we have to have the fashion show. This is the scene where we have to go to her apartment. This is the scene where we have to have the new assistant talking to the old assistant. Like check. And it just sort of made it feel like we were trudging through this film, which should have been a celebration and should have just been super fun. Like, it is fun seeing all of these people back on screen, but the fun of it, I think, got lost in the trudge of it all. And it didn't have to be that way. And I understand why it is that way. I understand that so few films do at the box office what a film like this can do, an established property that has millions of fans. Like, so everyone in the boardroom who wrote this film, and I'm convinced it was a boardroom of people, said, oh, make sure we have this moment and this moment and this moment because we need this to do well at the box office because we only get so many hits a year. And it just felt like there were no risks taken. And that just made it less fun. I wanted it to be a fun day at the movies. I don't go to the movie theaters very often. I'm now an audiobook girly. Okay. I'm getting through like 2 audiobooks a week. Okay. So that's now how I get my kicks. So I rarely go to the movies. And when I do, it's because I'm expecting it to be just like a super fun ride. And it was not a super fun ride. I'm sorry to say. I don't think if you haven't seen it yet and you go and you love the first film, do I think you're going to walk out of there being like, I hated it? No, you're not going to hate seeing Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley. Like, that's always going to be at least somewhat fun. And there were a few fun moments, but there could have been way more. And they also had so many people in this film. Like BJ Novak, Rebecca Bloom is here. Caleb, what's his name? Caleb, the influencer comedian guy, is there. All sorts of influencers are just kind of splattered throughout. Anne Hathaway's character has a dumb love interest for no reason that nobody needed. It just felt like, why are we doing all this? We don't need all these people. You know who we are here to see. Again, her name is Meryl Streep. Okay. And I feel like if we had just left off some of the screen time from some of those other fools that nobody asked for, I could have gotten more Meryl as Miranda because I love that. And she could have been used more fully to her ability. So that's my gripe with the film. But like I said, if you go see it, if you haven't seen it yet, I don't think you're going to hate it. I just think chances are it's going to fall short of your expectations a little bit. Oh, I didn't mention this up front, but one thing I did want to touch on really quickly is that girl, I don't know her name and I won't learn it. That girl who's been kind of sort of going viral for her take about like act your weight, basically saying like, if you're 160 pounds or more, you need to do less talking. No one wants to hear from you because you're so fat. Okay. I really like Drew Aufualo's take on this. She basically said something to the effect, we'll post the link. She said something to the effect of, just know that this little 2 weeks of virality that this girl is getting is going to be the highlight of her life. Like, she will never do anything more interesting than this. And I think that is true. I think that's absolutely true. Actually, I think about that sometimes when people are trolling me in my comments and whether or not I'm going to reply to them. Most of the time I don't reply, but I do think for the people who troll me, when I do reply, it is like a highlight for them. Highlight of their week, highlight of their month. Like, oh, you got me to reply. And for them, it's this huge moment. And for me, I have forgotten as soon as I press send, and is that really the life you want? Here's what I don't understand about this girl whose name I don't know is, as someone who has lived at very, very many sizes, from the size I am now up to, I think a size 16 at my heaviest, and every single size in between, and many years at every single size in between. I have never, when I'm smaller, felt like talking shit about anybody bigger than me at any of those sizes. Never, not once. It just has never even occurred to me to be like, oh, now that I'm a size 10, I'm going to talk all sorts of shit about people who are size 14. Now that I'm a size 8, I'm going to talk shit about, every size 12 I see. Where does that come from is what I want to know. Where, like, what is the gene that makes you feel like it is a productive use of time? It is a good use of time, that anything you're saying is interesting. Like, where does it come from? It always baffles me when I see people on the internet doing this, because I'm just like, it's one thing, who doesn't like to talk a little bit of shit? I like to gossip. I like to talk a little bit of shit. I like pop culture commentary. Obviously, you're here, I'm here, okay? But I'm talking about just whatever that little voice in your head is that tells you, specifically as it relates to anyone larger than me, I'm going to take issue with it, and then I'm going to speak about that issue publicly. It really is just so very confusing to me when you really could just sit there and say nothing. Nobody's even bothering you. It just is, it's very weird to me. And it's weird because it's so widespread. It's not just a few people here and there. There are a lot of people who just really feel like it is a part of their moral duty to shame people who are bigger than them. And I don't get it. It feels very foreign, very odd, very loser behavior, And that's the life you want? Oof. And it's memorialized. If at any point you decide, oh, I don't want to be this loser person, we all have the evidence of how much of a loser person you were. Oof. Yikes. But that was a quick aside. Let's get to Caitlin Clark. Now, I actually don't know where she was that she was walking out with Morgan Wallen. So let me look real quick. Okay, I found this little article from USA Today. It says Caitlin Clark walks off opening loss and onto Morgan Wallen's stage. Okay, let's see. First of all, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever lost their opener 107-104 to Paige Buckers and the Dallas Wings Saturday afternoon. Okay. And whatever concerns folks may have had about an injury after she left the game twice to go to the locker room seemed to be unfounded, as Clark made an appearance at a Morgan Wallen concert at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis Saturday night. Okay, so I guess this was a concert for Morgan Wallen, and I guess, I don't have to guess. More context. Wallen has a local celebrity walk him out at all of his live shows, and Clark did the honors in Indy. Oh, she's local to there. Oh, because she plays for the Indiana Fever. I'm catching up. I'm getting it in real time. Okay. The country music star was doing the second of 2 shows at Lucas Oil on his Still the Problem tour. All right. And that feels like enough context for me. I don't know that I need any more context than that. Okay. So she walked out for his concert after losing a basketball game. Here's the thing. Everything I know about Morgan Wallen, first of all, is against my will. Second of all, leads me to believe he's a terrible person. From excessive use of the N-word to clearly being MAGA, just being MAGA, or at the very least, heavily MAGA adjacent, to just his general demeanor. Basically, everything that old girl Haley Williams said from Paramore about why she hates his racist self, I agree. And all of this is known, okay? And so for Caitlin Clark to make the decision to walk out with him for his concert is her saying, I'm happy to align myself with this man who I know not only has said all of these racial slurs, not only is heavily MAGA affiliated, but who people generally understand to be someone who does not appreciate diversity, does not appreciate diverse voices, does not appreciate anyone other than the people in God's country and real Americans. Like, this is who he is, and you, Caitlin Clark, know that, and so you deciding to walk out with him, it is a choice. And whatever conclusions people draw because of that choice, you had to have anticipated. You had to have. You're not that young and you don't seem dumb. So you must have anticipated that that's the conclusion people would draw. I think most people aren't surprised. They're just more surprised. Like, I don't think anyone is surprised that this is who Caitlin Clark is and who she wants to be associated with. That's not what people are surprised by. I think what people are a little bit surprised by is that she would make the choice to essentially announce this to everybody. But, you know, it just adds to my list. What did I say on the first episode? Who would be the first celebrity to come out as MAGA? I was wrong. I thought it would be Craig Conover. It ended up being Katherine Heigl. She was number one, and number two is Caitlin Clark. Well, there you have it. And I don't want to hear, we don't know that she's MAGA. She just could be walking out. No. Okay. No. You are the company you keep. Okay. And it's fine. I don't particularly care. I mean, I don't care about Caitlin Clark. Truly, I don't really care about her. I don't really care about sports. I just think the conclusions people are drawing make absolute sense, fully predictable to her. It must be what she wanted. So here we are. So you want it, you got it. Okay, so next, I guess I do want to talk about West Wilson and this woman called Jen Fessler. Now, I don't know who Jen Fessler is. Let me Google. Okay, Google says that Jennifer Fessler is on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. That's one of the franchises I've never gotten into. And the reason she's in hot water is because recently, I guess she decided to defend West Wilson by saying he's just such a sweetheart and he's just a golden retriever and, you know, he never means any harm. Something to that effect, which obviously, girl, that's the take we want to bring to the public. Yikes. So then Sierra on, I think Threads maybe, replied to an influencer who talked about it and basically like rolled his eyes and said like, bleh. She replied and said, LOL, they slept together too. Okay. So I'm thinking if she's saying that publicly on the internet, it's because she has like knowledge of the fact that they did in fact do that. Okay. So then this woman, Jennifer Fessler, said, oh, no. She posted on her Instagram stories basically saying that's false. This has gone too far and it's defamation and it's libel. Here's my thing. You know, when I saw that she used the word libel, I just really feel like the ChatGPT attorneys, it is misleading you, okay? Like put GPT down and call an actual attorney, because I think an actual attorney would tell you it is not in fact libel, just given how hard it is to prove libel against a public figure. Her little statement, LOL, they slept together too, I don't think would get you there. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, okay? But I do think in order to prove libel, one, you have to prove that the statement was false. And I do actually think it's a hard thing to do, to prove that a thing never happened. Like to prove that two people never had sex definitively, I think is actually kind of difficult to do. I mean, you would have to prove that they never were in the same place at the same time and had any unaccounted hours for which no one could no eyewitnesses could say they definitely weren't together during this time. Like, I actually think it's kind of hard to prove a negative. Anyway, you have to prove it's false. And then I think you also have to prove that the statement was made with malice, which means I think the person knew that it was false. Let's consult Google. Okay, so I am about to be talking out of both sides of my mouth. I know I said don't consult GPT as your attorney, and I am consulting the AI overview here from Google. But I'm also not actively threatening to sue anybody, okay? So this is just for my knowledge and your knowledge for our little kiki. Okay, so I asked Google, what does it take to commit libel against a public figure? Google says, to commit libel against a public figure, you must publish a false statement of fact, not opinion, that harms their reputation, acting with actual malice, knowing it was false, or recklessly disregarding the truth. This higher standard, established in New York Times Co. versus Sullivan, requires proving intentional harm rather than simple negligence. And I think that higher standard is exactly where this Jennifer Fessler person would falter, because chances are Sierra, and I think the chances are high that Sierra said this believing it to be true because it was told to her by West Wilson or someone very close to West Wilson. Okay. And so if information like that is shared from you from the source or someone close to the source, then you'd have reason to believe it. And so then I think any attorney worth his salt could argue this was not intentional harm. This was her simply stating an opinion based on things that she had been told, that had been shared with her. I think it would be very easy to argue that case. And so, again, I think throwing out terms like libel, just based on the strength of your GPT, JD, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And Sierra seems completely unbothered. Okay. I've seen her posting like cartwheel emojis, just looking very unbothered on social. So I don't think she's worried. I think maybe she did text her lawyer and just say, hey, this girl's talking about libel. Am I all right? And I'm pretty sure he texted back, yeah, you're good. So, oh, speaking of Sierra, I did see her summer house reunion look. Amazing. 10s across the board. I haven't seen any of the other ones. So I think it'd be fun for us to just do a quick peruse. No, let's do it. Okay, so I'm gagged because the only person they have released an individual photo for is Sierra Miller. This is her look. For our listeners who aren't watching, she's wearing a two-piece getup. The top piece is basically a bikini top. It's all white, basically a bikini top with what looks to be like some thread, very sexy. And then the bottom piece is a long, like cream colored skirt, again, with like threads kind of flowing throughout. Very, very sexy. Her hair is in this like Hollywood glam wave, deep wave. And I think she's got the purplish tint to it. Very vampy, but also very like beachy, sexy. Gagged. For everybody else, all we get is a cast photo. Okay, so I was thinking we'd get to go one by one. We do not. So Summer House, I mean, the producers are definitely milking this, and I'm fine with that, okay? She also, from what I can tell, looking at this cast photo, is the best dressed one. Let's see, who else should I call out? Wes looks a mess. My God. Could you not for 1 second clean it up? I'm not even sure those pants fit. Okay, Wes looks a mess. Dara looks good. You know, this looks to me like a very clean look for her. She's in white. She's got the dramatic slit up the slide. Good for you, girl. Who else? Oh, Lindsay looks fantastic. She is wearing a red ba ba boom number, okay? It's got the one shoulder. It's got the cutout right underneath the breast. Her boobs are hiked to the heavens. She's got a slit. Fantastic. Oh, Mia looks great. I feel like Mia and Sierra are matching. It's kind of giving twinsies. She's also in this cream dress. It's giving silk with a little bit of feathery detail on the top. Love. And then Bailey is somewhat inexplicably in a green pantsuit. Is this a pantsuit? It could be a dress. It's either a dress or a pantsuit. Not sure I understand that. And then Amanda looks a mess also. Okay, that's all I really need to say about that. Everyone else, I guess, looks fine. I'm excited to see the individual photos so we can really get into the details. But Sierra looks the best by far. That's what matters. And they do say on their little blog the individual pictures are coming soon, but they dropped that photo of Sierra last week, I think. So they're really giving us time to just soak in this image of her before we see anybody else. And I'm guessing they're nervous about doing an individual post for Amanda and West because they know, well, I don't even know if they care about putting individual photos of the men up, but for Amanda, because they know it'll just be hate comments. Maybe they'll turn the comments off for that one. We'll see. And we've made it to Billie Eilish. Oh, God. Billie Eilish. What do I want to say about Billie Eilish? You know, first of all, I have reviewed her album on this show. I have given her many props on this show. I like Billie Eilish's music for the most part. Hit Me Hard and Soft to me was very hit or miss. I felt like half of it was great and half of it was meh. That's just me. But generally speaking, she has a lot of songs that I do enjoy. And I think she's very talented. Okay. However, she did get on the internet. She was asked for a hot take from some magazine or someone interviewing her. And she said, well, people aren't going to like this, but my hot take is you can't claim to love animals and eat meat. Now, all of the internet has spoken at length about how tone deaf this take is. First of all, being vegan is actually not accessible to everybody. It actually is not accessible to everybody. Let's start there. Okay, so it's an extremely privileged take. Also, there are many, many cultures wherein honoring the sacrifice of the animals that you are consuming is a part of their culture or of their religion, of their spirituality. And so, of course, they also would take deep offense to the idea that they can't love animals and eat animals. Also, we're omnivores. So I think there are a lot of scientists who would, take issue with this idea. There just was no reason to say it. And I mean, it was a hot take. She was asked for a hot take. So, okay, it was a hot take. But the thing is, you knew when you said it, it was going to offend a whole lot of people. It did offend a whole lot of people. And then to come down and like double down and basically make it seem as though you're not the problem, they're the problem because they're offended. Girl, it just is, it's just exhausting. And I do find her generally to be a bit exhausting. It's like, we get it. You're an activist. I mean, no, she's actually not an activist, but like, you have morals. You care about things. Things are important to you. We understand. People shouldn't be making so many vinyl variants. They should only make the number of vinyl variants that you made. That is the globally sustainable number of vinyl variants to make. Not the other number that Taylor made or Olivia Rodrigo made. The number you made is the right number, right? It just is like, girl, it's exhausting. Aren't you exhausted? Like that you constantly have to be held to these standards that you are putting out there. So now if you ever in your life decide to eat a piece of sushi or anything else, you're just going to get dragged to high heavens. I mean, aren't you tired? We're tired, Billie. Okay? Give it a rest. Take a break. Take a day. Oh, and if you're wondering like what I mean when I say she doubled down, basically she posted some footage of animal cruelty on her IG story and then said, go watch a documentary or two and some footage of what is done to the animals you claim to love and what it does to the planet you pretend to love as well. If that footage was hard for you to watch, I encourage you to please take a look at yourself. Like, I am so tired of standing up for / having empathy for living beings being controversial. Please continue to live in a constant state of cognitive dissonance and denial and try to convince yourself that you're not living a lie. Moi. And just to be very clear, no one has a problem with Billie Eilish being vegan. I certainly do not. I don't have a problem with any vegans, any vegetarians, whatever dietary lifestyle you are committed to. I love that for you. But offending people by saying you cannot possibly care about animals and have animals be a part of your diet, I just think it's like scientifically and demonstrably false, psychologically false. And it feels so juvenile to say, it feels like the take you'd get from like a 7th grader who just decided to be vegan last week, not the take you'd get from a grown woman. Okay, with grown woman friends and grown woman experiences. It feels very juvenile. It feels very silly. Girl, if you want to be vegan, be vegan. Nobody's mad at you for being vegan, for having empathy for living beings. It is not, in fact, controversial that you have empathy for living beings. Nobody said that. What's controversial is insulting a whole lot of people for no goddamn reason on a Tuesday. Okay? That's what's controversial. All right. And I don't know if I'm going to get to Meghan Trainor today, but I do want to end with Beyonce. I saw this clip of the New York Times panel that I guess created the songwriting list, the 30 greatest living American songwriters list. And I saw a panel where they were sort of like discussing the list and some of the more controversial takes. They got a question from someone about why Beyonce was left off the list. I want to play the clip.
Can you read this comment from Craig?
So this is Craig. Craig wrote, Beyonce left off because? Did her style of, parentheses, genius collaborative songwriting count her out? Her last 3 albums, Lemonade, Renaissance, and Cowboy Carter, are genre-bending American classics. Referencing American Requiem at this point would seem appropriate. Be interested in the thought process of the judges, please, period.
Those old ideas.
I can tell you mine.
Buried here. Yeah.
I think of Beyonce as a curator and an executive producer. I have heard...
And performer.
And
Well,
of
Obvious
course,
performer.
the
Yes,
performer.
obvious, like
right.
the performer.
The performer
Yes.
of the moment. I agree with most of this comment. I think I've heard demos that Beyonce has sang. I see what she adds to them. She is Frank Sinatra. She is Frank Sinatra plus Quincy Jones plus Kanye West, another person I would put in this camp. Kanye West famously, infamously uses ghostwriters, uses ghost producers. Mm-hmm. He is the magician who can put all that stuff together. He can record a session with Justin Vernon, a session with Chief Keef, a Mike Dean guitar solo, put it all together. He is the maestro. He's a modern day composer. I'm open to the argument that that's another sort of postmodern songwriting.
Yes.
But that would have been expanding the definition for me one click further, and we didn't take it there.
Okay, so I wanted to play the whole clip because one, I really liked the question as asked by that person who wrote in. I think that Beyonce's most recent 3 albums are among the best albums of the last 10 years. Like, if I had to rank the top 10 albums of the last 10 years, all 3 of those albums would definitely be there. And one of them would be at the top, okay? And that album is Lemonade. And so I completely agree. Like, I think she's doing album making better than just about anybody else out there. And she is a credited songwriter on basically every single song. And so given that that's the case, I think it's a very valid question. Why isn't she on this list? That said, I thought the answer was valid as well. I didn't love the comparison to Kanye West. I think she's very different from Kanye West. However, I get what he's saying about, and again, her husband said this, about her being a producer. She is, I think, a producer first because she's a performer first and then a songwriter second. And so I understand why when making this list, people may have said, listen, we were thinking about it in the more traditional sense of who are the people that can sit down at a piano, sit down at a guitar, sit down with a notebook and write a full song sort of start to finish, maybe themselves with maybe one other person, write a full song start to finish. And that song that they write in that moment, 90% of it is what we then end up listening to on the radio, right? To me, it sounds like that's sort of the definition that they're using. And while I do think that that's a very narrow definition of songwriting, and I think probably does not encapsulate how the majority of songs in this day and age even are written, I can understand if that was sort of the metric they were using, right? If you establish a metric and you establish a definition and then you create your list using that metric, I can at least respect that. And I can respect him saying, for me, it would have been taking it, expanding the definition to include a Beyonce. Okay, like would I have included her? 100,000%. But I can respect and understand why she was left off. And I didn't raise any hell about her being left off. You were not going to find any videos of me being like, why isn't Beyonce on this list? I didn't raise any hell about that because after looking at the list, I did sort of understand how they were defining and thinking about songwriting. And I'm okay with that. And I felt like it was important for me to say that because I know some people think like, I ride so hard for Beyonce that, I'd be the sort of person to raise hell over any list she was left off of. No. And that's all we've got for this week, folks. It's time for me to wash my face, take off my wig, and go to yoga. And I take my yoga very seriously, cannot be late. I got to be in the front row. I'm part of FRC, which is a term that I coined and no one else uses, which stands for front row crew. That's me. I'm always in the front. I have my spot that I like. And when I'm late, I don't get my spot that I like. So I have got to go. And I'll see you next time.